Hi, it's Mary Lou Novak with Resource, the number 4 Care, and the producer of the Aging in Memphis podcast. I want to thank Gwendolyn Tucker for being here today and being my guest. Today we're going to be talking about courageous conversations. And Gwendolyn and I recently met. Well, first let me say who you are. Gwendolyn is the president and managing partner of Rick's International. And when we met recently about some other things, we realized we both had a similar journey in caring for family members and experience in helping people or encouraging them to address challenging issues. Mm-hmm. And that's where we came up with the title for our talk today, which is Courageous Conversations, or we might even say Courageous Care Conversations, because that's kind of the topic we're talking about. So Gwendolyn, I know that you cared for your parents, correct?
Well, actually, so my mom and my was in a nursing home.
Okay.
And my father was the one who provided the major care for my mom.
I see.
Right? But one of the things, as you and I talked about, my father began to prepare me in case he actually passed away before my mom passed away. He would always say, if your mom is the longest liver, this is what I need you to do. And so, but having that conversation, because even today, I find myself getting very emotional about it.
I can see that, yeah.
But basically my father, I'll say he forced me to have the conversation, but he knew that I needed to have the conversation. We needed to have the conversation.
Yes.
He also knew that I was reluctant to have it, and if he didn't force it, that it wouldn't have come about when it did.
Right.
Yeah.
The timing of it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. I mean, it's human nature to avoid things that are uncomfortable.
Absolutely.
But often need to be said. And I'm a part of a lot of talks or recordings and things, and one of the common things is communicating what you want and what your needs are and your wishes is a gift.
It is
a gift, and I'm sensing, I'm getting a chill saying that because I'm sensing that it was a gift your father gave you,
and for me too, because I knew that he had shared with me what his wishes were.
Yes.
And we were able to carry those out. And so that gave me joy.
Yes.
And so it was a blessing to both of us. And it was really interesting how my father kind of eased me into the conversation, right?
I'm eager to hear.
Because so we live in Memphis, and my parents lived in Pensacola, Florida.
Oh.
And so my father started having the conversation with me about putting me on his accounts.
Okay.
So when I would go home, he would say, well, I want to put you on the accounts in case something happens.
Right.
I want you to be able to transact business and that kind of thing. So that's how he first started.
Okay.
And then he started giving me information about, insurance and all of that information.
Right.
And thankfully, he was, up and healthy until really pretty much until he passed away, almost at the age of 88. So
wonderful.
We're very, very fortunate.
Yeah.
Yeah, very fortunate. Yeah. And I'm sure you can relate to that type of situation.
Sure, yeah. It's not always the case. And sometimes it's a long journey and other times it's short. And there's no way for me to say which one's easier. They're both have their positives and challenges.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what do you think the best way we can, from our backgrounds and experiences, how can we not just share the importance, because I think we've kind of hit a little bit on that, but how do we start these conversations and how do we prepare our family? What are your thoughts on that?
Well, in my case, thankfully, my father wanted to have the conversation.
Okay.
Right?
That doesn't always happen.
It doesn't always happen. And so there can be some resistance and reluctance to have the conversation. So I was very fortunate that my father wanted to have the conversation. Yes. Now, my mom was in a nursing home and she had been sick, a lot of her life. and I think she was close to 84 when she passed away, right?
Okay.
So she passed away first, but my father started having these conversations before she passed away, because he knew that if he passed away first,
Sure.
then I would have to be the one to take, or he wanted me to be the one to take care of and make sure that things got done.
Yes.
Regarding her care. But in a case where your parents are reluctant to have that conversation, really acknowledging it,
Right.
And even getting some help and assistance. I would imagine in your resource for care group there
Right.
may be some counselors or
Yes.
people who walk with caregivers
Yes.
on how to have this kind of conversation.
Yeah,
Fair?
yeah, very much so. And often it starts with educating yourself. So as you begin to learn, different things, like the difference between what's independent living, assisted living, and memory care, for example, if you have a family member who's starting to decline either physically or mentally, going to these different places, you don't have to wait till you have the immediate need. And there's no reason why you can't include your family member in that. And the pressure's off because they're not infirmed, and they're going and they're checking these different things out, and you can almost find out in real time, what their likes and dislikes are.
Absolutely.
And just begin to formulate a plan in advance. And I've been lucky because my mom has said to me, we've talked about it, and I'm like, Mom, where do you want to live in my house? Like, what should I make my dining room a bedroom? Do you want to take the spare bedroom? And this last time when I was with her, she said to me, you know what, I don't think I would mind going to like a community in the area where I live. She says, I've been thinking about it. I don't think I'd mind. So one of the things I want to do when I visit her is to go visit a few. I mean, how do I know if something should happen to her cognitively? How would I know
Absolutely.
what is going to make her comfortable or uncomfortable, or is she a joiner? Is she going to like sitting and having lunch with everybody, or not, or that type of thing. So, and the panel has a lot of people that are specializing in different areas. But going and being educated by them is, I think, a good way to start.
Yeah.
Reaching out.
Because I think, I know with me, my father, he knew by putting me on his accounts that that would be an easier conversation to have.
That's a great, I've never suggested that. I think that's wonderful.
Than to talk about, going to the mortuary or the mortuary, to kind of do their pre-need.
Yes.
So he began to talk to me about pre-need and, planning for his burial and all of that. So we were able to ease into that, and with his insurance and all of that, he gave me the names of the information of his agent. And one of the things so when he passed away, I was on my computer, and I went to set up a folder, and it was called Daddy, and it said the folder already existed.
Oh.
In 2014, I created a folder, and he had started giving me information. And he passed away in 2020. So,
isn't it amazing how our computer sort of tracks our lives, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I went there and I had everything I needed.
Wow.
So, all the documentation, who I needed to contact, and everything was there.
Well, isn't it wonderful that you had so many years before had the conversation and then it was already there?
Absolutely, yeah.
That's
and see, my mom
amazing.
passed away. So my mom passed away 22 months before he passed away. We went with him to do all of the transactions. So when he passed away, we went and followed in his path.
Yes.
And made those plans.
I may be a little embarrassed to say that my father passed away suddenly during COVID, and while we were at the funeral home, and it was partially a financial choice because there was money that needed to be spent because it was put aside for that. But I didn't let my mother leave without planning her own funeral while we were there for my dad. It's just so hard to do when you're upset.
Yes.
And I just couldn't imagine setting myself up to go through it again.
Yeah.
Well, who knows how it's going to be, but just trying to make choices for him when he wasn't there.
Yeah.
At least
Yeah.
she could make the choices.
Yes.
And I think, in coaching, I see that a lot when people shift and decide to make a choice on something rather than something being put on them.
Right.
There's a huge difference in your capacity.
Yes. Yeah.
Right?
And clarity.
Yes.
Around
Because
feeling
emotional energy takes up your clarity.
Absolutely it does.
Yeah.
So I was very thankful. So I would really just encourage. It can be very tough having that
Yes.
conversation, but it's needed.
Yes.
It is necessary. And I think what happens is, when something does happen,
Right.
you have a greater peace of mind. I
Yes.
know I did.
Absolutely.
And then I was also able to communicate to those, other family members, oh, this is what Daddy wanted.
Right.
And and we're going to carry out his wishes, or this is what Mama wanted, and we're going
Right.
to carry out their wishes.
Right.
So you have that peace of mind.
Yes.
That even in death, you're carrying out their wishes and honoring them.
Right. I know you've done a lot, in your business and probably personally too, and in different roles that you've had in having other difficult conversations, right? So if we don't have the opportunity, what is your recommendations on, like, how to maybe what to say, what not to say? For example, when you're in conflict, you don't go you, right? Because that creates friction. What are some of the do you have recommendations on some of the phrases or I don't know, ways to approach it in a softer way? What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, normally what I do is I try to engage in more asking
That's a
than
good
telling.
thing, yes.
So kind of that asking for understanding what they mean. I'm a big proponent of Covey, of seek first to understand,
Yes.
then to be understood,
Yes.
and to prioritize the relationship over being right. Sometimes too, knowing what we can talk about now and what we need to table till later
Right.
is also something very important. But really getting to grips with, this is something we will have to have a conversation about.
Yes.
Maybe now is not the time. And so when we can come back at a time when we can
Right.
continue the conversation, and then realize that we may not finish it at that time.
Right.
It may be this next step, then next step, and next step.
I think that's great advice, asking questions. I think a lot of people, it's a lost art for some.
Yeah.
But and they don't have to be pointed questions, they could be exploratory, right? So what would be some of the things that we what do you think? What are some things, questions that we could ask?
In a situation with your family member?
Yeah, like starting the conversation.
I would say just asking an open-ended question, have you thought about this?
Right.
And I think the fact that if you've had a situation happen in your
Yes.
family or in someone else's family,
Yes.
and you say it's your friend or what have you, say, Mom, my friend's mom, this happened to her.
Right.
Have you ever thought about what you would want to do in that situation? So basically, you kind of take the edge off,
Right.
and you can relate it to it happening somewhere else. And I'm just concerned.
Yes.
And then begin to have the conversation about
Yeah,
that. And they may say, yeah, I thought about it. And sometimes, well, no, I haven't thought about it.
Right. I have a dear friend of mine that's, on a care journey with her mom. And physically and mentally, there's challenges. And even if that's not the case, in seeing what she's going through and having that conversation with my mom about my friend, it is a good segue, right? To say, I see what, I almost said her name, but I see what my friend's going through, and let's talk about it.
Right.
Let's have a conversation. And I think asking my mom which room she wanted the house. Well, at least I was conveying that I was willing, and my home's her home.
Yeah. And I'm sure that warmed her heart.
Yes.
Because she knew you were there and supportive and everything.
Right. I think it's a worry for people. What. Who am I going to be with if I need to be with someone? Yeah.
And I think the other thing too that I have found is that oftentimes for individuals, they don't want to be a burden.
Yes, that's a big deal.
And then they don't want to lose their independence.
Right.
Usually, those two things are, it's like, I don't want to disrupt your life, and I
Right.
don't want to do whatever, but, and they want to maintain their independence.
I think also my mother's concern was that, she's lived in the same state
Yes.
her entire life. And the thought of moving halfway across the country and starting anew as she's 84 now, so when would it be, I think that got her thinking. I think me mentioning what room she wanted got her thinking about it.
Yeah, and my father, he was a teaser. He was very lighthearted,
That's
and so he
nice.
didn't like heavy stuff.
Yes.
So being able,
Well, he didn't like heavy stuff, but he was the one. He's the one.
and he could do it in a lighthearted way
That's
that it
wonderful.
didn't feel heavy.
Yes, yes.
And I think that's another piece. Not that it's not important.
No.
But the fact that this is a reality at
Yes.
some point in time. This is going to occur, and I want you to be prepared.
Right.
I want you to be ready.
Right. One of our recent panels, we were talking about conversations and making time for your family member that's not transactional. What I mean is, like, if you are doing a lot of tasks for your parent, running to the bank or getting, supplies or taking to the doctor, that's not quality time. And that if that's what your time is filled with, then really when you go to say, Mom, we need to talk,
Yeah.
and you haven't really talked, or Dad, we need to have a conversation, it's almost like when you tell your kids, right? And they're like, oh gosh, she just said that phrase, what the heck is Mom gonna say, right?
What's going on?
What's gonna happen? Yeah.
One of the things too that my dad did, and I don't know how this all got started, but we began to lay out his family line, and so his ancestors and his siblings, their siblings, and all of that. And I have that document today.
Oh, that's wonderful.
And so I just went to a family reunion, and I was able to share that so that we can see back at least 4 or 5 generations, who our relatives were and are,
Right.
So that was something that was also very important to me.
Sure.
And everything.
Yeah.
So.
And I think that it's a way for us to connect, right?
It is.
Especially, I mean, your dad was lighthearted. Some parents aren't so much.
Yep.
So it's a commonality that a family could, talk and share without it being heavy.
Yes, absolutely.
Everybody's, I think most people are interested in where they came from.
Yes.
It's funny that you say that because I'm accompanying my mom on a trip soon, and we're meeting with a genealogist in another country.
Okay.
Yeah, to help expand the family tree. So I have my expanded. We're on an app or a software where you make your family tree. I'm not going to give them a commercial, but anyway, we're on there anyway. So it's just a hope that this expands, and then I have cousins that are watching.
Wow.
So we'll see when I get back whether I have anything of interest to share with them.
But see, and it was very important to me because my father. So there were 10 of them, and
Oh my
and there
gosh.
were, and he only had one younger sibling. So he was 88 days from his 88th birthday. So he had one sibling, a younger sibling left. So now that he's passed on, this is very valuable to me to know
Sure.
our family tree and our history.
Sure, where
and
would
to
you
be
get
able-
that from?
We wouldn't be able to. Yeah,
That's amazing.
we would not be able to. So
Everyone go out and do that. Speak with your family, because there's actually a couple of books out right now, one of which I just recently put on my newsletter. That is it's a book that you create the book yourself. So if you are interested in getting the newsletter, you can either go to my website, resource4care.com, or that would probably be the best way, I think, or resource4care@gmail.com. Just email me. But it's a book that asks questions to get that conversation going that we're talking about, and then you fill in the answers.
I love that.
Yeah,
I love
yeah.
that. Because, when I think about when I grew up, I was around, so I grew up with my mom's mother. So my grandmother on my mother's side. That was the only grandparent I knew.
Okay.
But I knew I knew my aunts and uncles and things like that.
Sure.
And they were able to tell stories, of, what used to happen.
Yes.
And so could be around the kitchen table or helping to cook, or family at holidays or what have you,
Right.
having conversations around, what people used to do or that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So that was all very valuable. So having that information,
Right.
I think would be just
Well, and
wonderful.
recipes too, right?
Oh, absolutely. Because we let my grandmother get out of here with a lot of recipes.
no.
Yeah, we did get some, but not all.
Not as many.
Yeah, I would really wish we had done a recipe book of hers, but we do have some of her recipes. So
Right.
Yeah. The other thing too was what happened. So when my parents passed away,
Yes.
then it opened the door for my husband and me for us to have a conversation around our will,
Yes.
around developing a trust.
Yeah.
What were our wishes?
Yes.
So I think it's very important to not just keep it with our parents,
Right.
but to also apply it in our situation. So we don't have children, but for those who have children,
Yes.
to be able to share it with your children about what your wishes are. And I think by modeling that with your children,
Yes.
it makes it easier for them to model
Sure.
and to embrace as well.
Yeah, exactly. One of the reasons why I started Resource for Care is because there's, in owning a home care business for 12 years, and then being a caregiver for my dad and power of attorney for my mom, I realized that a lot of people, there's a gap between, what you need to know and what you know.
Right.
And the information, the education is so important, and the conversation's a big part of that. So there are documents out there. 5 Wishes is an excellent document. I don't know are you familiar with that one?
Yes, I'm very familiar with that one.
So 5 Wishes is a document that allows or leads you through a gentle but very powerful list of questions that talks about all areas, what you want, what you don't want,
Right.
Either physically or in your environment. Sherry Harbour wrote a book about being on the journey, and that's also, you can get that resource from my website. And it leads you through all the documents you need in order to be ready, in order to button things up and be ready. And it's amazing to me that as many people I run into still don't have what you mentioned, having the will for you and your husband, having a power of attorney. I mean, tragedies do happen.
Yeah, they do.
We don't like to admit that, but our children even need power of attorneys.
Right.
So have the conversations, and there's plenty of resources out there to have them.
When you mentioned the 5 wishes, so my
Yes.
husband and I did complete that, and we
Okay.
walked through that document together. And
Excellent.
it was really hard having the conversation, because oftentimes it's like I'm just trying to, imagine what my life would be like without him, or without
Sure.
them,
Who
or
wants
what
to
have
think
you.
that
No
way?
one wants to think that, but just in case, in the event that it does occur,
Yes.
these are my wishes and are things that need to be taken care of. And if something does happen, you're better
Right.
prepared.
Yeah. You can go, if you Google 5 Wishes, you can find where they have them. There's an electronic version and a hard copy. I ordered hard copies because I wanted to give them out. And they're $5 now to get a hard copy. So we bought, I bought a box of them, and I brought them down with me to visit my husband's side of the family, because his mother just recently, I would say, less than 2 years ago, passed away. So we're sitting at the dining room table having dinner, and it's just the 4 of us, me and my husband, his brother, and his wife. And we brought the 5 Wishes with us. And I started the conversation. I mean, they were sweating, like they wanted to get up and run out of the room. We didn't talk about it. We just mentioned that we had the form. So Mark went out to the car and brought them in. He says, "Here, just to." But I, when I went through it with my dad, that's when I ordered them. I went out and just said, I'm going to get them for my family members. And there's a few of them around Valentine's Day that year when I got them that I mailed them. Like, Happy Valentine's Day. This is really important.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting because my mom passed like 22 months before my father passed away.
Wow.
And
That must have been hard.
it was, you know, I
Yeah.
share with people, I knew that my mom would die one day. I just didn't expect it to be that day.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, who does? Yeah.
But my father, though, because he was taking care of everything.
Right, right.
So we just followed in his footsteps, right? And so I think it is important to at least have an understanding. Also, and when my mom passed away, we went through grief counseling together as a family.
That's wonderful.
So that opens the door to begin having conversations that otherwise you probably would not have, right?
Yeah.
So I think that all just set the stage to prepare us for that.
What was grief counseling like for you? Was that something? I've not gone through that. I'm curious to know about it.
So we did, there's something called Grief Share. It was actually very powerful.
Okay.
Because actually it allows you to talk about things that you wouldn't think of. It allows you to express your feelings and your emotions. And so it was great for us.
Yes.
And it also sets the stage for the family to have conversations.
Yes.
Because oftentimes when you have a great loss, although you're experiencing it together, in many ways you're in isolation, or may feel as though you're in isolation. Sure. And so this gave us common terminology and just kind of a common vocabulary to talk about it and to express our emotions around it as we process our feelings.
I mean, think about it. We have siblings, right, that grew up in the same household, and we all turn out slightly different versions, let's just say. Yeah. So imagine going through an experience like that. Everybody's going to have their own journey, even though they might be the closest of family members. It's all going to be filtered through, everybody's personality and thoughts, and their experience is going to be different. So I can imagine getting everybody together. There was probably some surprises of how people were digesting and dealing and what was coming out.
There was. I think the piece is understanding that people process grief differently. Yes. And allowing them to do that. I think that's the biggest piece. Yes. That I learned from there, that we encounter and process grief differently. Yeah.
I mean, it's also true. Well, before I mention that, I just wanted to take a moment and mention our sponsor. Our sponsor is Janelle Holloway with Eagle Hollow Enterprises, and she is an expert in navigating Medicare and coming up on some of our deadlines toward the end of the year for Medicare decisions. She is an excellent resource to help you navigate that, and she's got a huge heart. I think you know Janelle also. So I highly recommend her, and her information will be shown in the video. But what I was going to say, and we're up to about maybe one more minute of time here, is that that we have to allow people to care or show their care for a family member in different ways too. That's what I learned, similar to you learning in the grief counseling, where people grieve differently. Some people step up and become okay with doing all the personal care and the daily care, and others just, what I call, don't have the care gene. It's not really that they don't care, it's just they may not have the capacity to do the same things that you do. And to allow room for somebody to care in a different way. So, give them an opportunity to pay for things, etc.
And to support in different ways.
Yes, and be open to that.
Absolutely.
So any parting words? We're down to a few seconds.
I would just say this: be brave, stout-hearted, and courageous. You can do this.
Amen. Thank you.
You're welcome.